I know.
I call the meeting to order. If everyone will please rise and face the flag, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's right. Ms. Streeter, if you would roll the roll call.
Member Campbell, Member Bryant, and Member Estelle will have unexcused absence for the record. Chair Clark,
Present.
Vice Chair Stark,
Here.
Member Horning,
Here.
Member Lamug,
Here.
Member Jones,
Here.
and Member Oquendo.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. In the opening of business, I don't know that there's any opening business, so why don't we go through the approval of the minutes? If everyone's had a moment to review the minutes of the October 11th workshop and the October 11th meeting.
Can we move for both of them at the same time?
I have a motion to approve by Member Stark. Do I have a second? Second by Member Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Our minutes have been approved. I don't see that we have any old business listed, so we'll go to new business, and I'll open the floor to Christina.
Okay, so this is the day we have all been waiting for. At least it's the day I've been waiting for, and I know for sure it's the day Member Stark has been waiting for. So we are here today so you all can have a vote on the National Register nomination for the St. Cloud Downtown Historic District. So I just wanted to recap some of the things that we went over in our presentation in June. I did this for the benefit of the public, but they're not here, so I'm gonna fly through it since you all have seen it already. But if you feel the need to slow me down, just wave and I'll pause, or just throw something at me. But basically, this nomination for the National Register Historic District is a grant from the Division of Historical Resources. I've got the grant number up there for you. The project lead on this and historian is Laura Lee Corbett with Laura Lee Corbett Consulting, and I'm the nomination lead and preservation consultant that worked with Laura Lee on this nomination. I have to first acknowledge how we got here. So the National Register nomination was really due to the efforts of St. Cloud Main Street, starting with St. Cloud Main Street obtaining a grant, which I have the grant number up there, for a historic district survey, which was done in 2020. On the heels of that survey, St. Cloud Main Street applied for a grant for the St. Cloud National Register District nomination. The grant number is up there. So I just really wanted to recognize the efforts of St. Cloud Main Street and, of course, Paula Stark here, who is the executive director who did the grant applications, because without those grants, we wouldn't be here. And for the city of St. Cloud and all the work that they've done on their end to make this nomination happen, I want to recognize Veronica Miller, the city manager, Melissa Dunklin, community development director, Abraham Fogel, senior planner, right here, the amazing Abe, Stephanie Streeter, executive administrative assistant, who we have to applaud on getting our meeting notices out during Hurricane Ian. That was a joy. And then at the division.
What else did you have to do anyway? I mean, come
Hand
on.
stamp them.
She was on a unicycle, spinning plates, and like she had symbols. It was amazing. Okay, and at the Division of Historical Resources, I want to recognize Chip Birdsong. He's with the Florida Master Site File, which Florida Master Site File is very important in this effort. Ruben Acosta, the fearless Ruben Acosta, who you all met in June, the Survey and Registration Supervisor, and Andrew Weber, who you have not met, but who played a really important part in this project. Lastly, but not least, Jorge Lopez, the GIS manager at the Property Appraiser's Office, did so much work on this. It was really a lot of work to put the maps together and make sure that we had the right parcel IDs and that we were sure that all our T's were crossed and our I's were dotted. And St. Cloud Heritage Museum, Olive Horning, curator. I think you're former curator now, or
Yeah,
you still?
now I'm former.
Yeah, but you were curator and you helped me out quite a
Yes.
bit. And another person that I was connected to through the St. Cloud Heritage Museum is Larissa Roderick, who's a local historian. And she went through and actually read the entire nomination and gave me a lot of really good feedback. So I wanted to recognize her publicly as well. Okay, so I think by now you all are kind of up to speed on this. What is the National Register? It's a list of historically significant places in our country. It was established in 1966 by the National Historic Preservation Act, and it provides a standardized framework for evaluating and designating historic properties. And the types of properties that can be listed on the National Register are not just buildings, but structures. So think of something like a bridge, sites, objects, districts, as you have in front of you right now, and landscapes are all recognized as part of the National Register. There are certain criteria that you can apply for National Register designation, and we categorize those as A, B, C, D. A is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of our history. B is associated with lives of significant people in our past. C, this is the one that's the architecture criteria, so it relates to characteristics of architecture, type, period, or method of construction that represent the work of a master or that possess high artistic values, or that represent a significant and distinguishable entity whose components may lack individual distinction. That's a little bit wordy, but basically what that last part is saying is that sometimes a framed vernacular house freestanding on its own may not be eligible for National Register, but when you get a collection of them together in an area, then yes. And then D is a site that may be likely to yield information important to prehistory or history. So that's the criteria that when we're looking at doing National Register nominations that we go under. What does listing result in? Listing results in written history of a property, access to federal historic preservation tax incentives for income generating properties, potential bonuses to grant applications, review of federal projects to assess impact on property, and flexibility under FEMA and building code requirements. So there's a lot of things that come out of a National Register listing, but I do want to be clear, listing on the National Register does not regulate the actions of private property owners. Private property owners retain all private property rights when it comes to National Register designation. Listing does not automatically preserve a building or prevent its demolition, and listing does not require public access to a property. I do want to just, as a sidebar on that first bullet point there, your local ordinance does, however, regulate the actions of private property owners. So while National Register designation does not do that, your local ordinance does. Any questions so far? Good. Okay. Currently, you have three sites, buildings listed on the National Register. You've got the GAR building at 1101 Massachusetts Avenue. That was constructed in 1914 and added to the register on February 21st, 1997. You've got the St. Cloud Depot. And over here, I have where it says NR numbers. Those are the file numbers. If you want to ever pull up the nominations and read through the nominations of each one of those things, that's what that NR number represents. We've got the St. Cloud Depot at 915 New York Avenue, which was constructed in 1910, added to the register on July 31st, 2018. You've got the Veterans Memorial Library, Women's Club of St. Cloud Auditorium, which was the most recent addition. That's located at 1012 to 1014 Massachusetts Avenue, and it was added to the register on August 3rd, 2020. Once you all, yes. Member Jones, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question, and it has to do with the Veterans Memorial Library / Women's Club of St. Cloud Auditorium. On page, I don't know what page number it is, page 20, up at the top, it has 10/14/1910. This is for Massachusetts Avenue, but there's no 1012 there. I'm wondering why if it was already done.
Very good question. I was going to get to that in a little while, but I'll address it right now since you bring it up. when we put together the list of properties, we have to go by what the property appraiser has in their record only. So when you pull that parcel up on the property appraiser, the address that is reflected for that entire parcel is 1014.
And that's wrong.
But it's wrong.
They're both of them are, I mean, neither one was built in
No, neither one.
Are you looking, can you show
They're
me
looking
what
at
you're
the
looking at?
circa 1910.
Yes, right here. It's just plain wrong.
Okay, we will correct that.
It should be 1012 and 1014, and it's not 1910. Mrs. Horning, share of the year.
The first one, the 1012, actually, it was dedicated in 1923. But it was built in 1922, but, you know, 19, so you could put 1922, 1923, either one. I mean, that's pretty close. And then the other one
You're
was,
not looking at the right spot, you're looking at.
Yeah, it's
Missouri.
19.
I'm looking at Missouri and not Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's 1922 over here.
I thought I was looking at, oh, well, it's an M word.
It's on page
No,
19.
it is.
oh, why would the building be on?
It's right here.
Oh,
Missouri.
just a minute, you're right. You're right. I flipped it, but I didn't turn it over. Sorry for the panic.
That's okay. When I saw frame vernacular, I thought, wow, I got a lot of things wrong.
Massachusetts Avenue.
Okay, now
And of course, if you see anything that does need to be
But
corrected.
it's got,
she doesn't, they don't have the other one.
it has 1012, it doesn't have 1014.
Right, and that's what I was just explaining to you. With the National Register, when we submit, we have to put the address that is on the property appraiser record. We cannot put I actually had to redo this entire thing because I had the physical addresses that you see in the street, which I meticulously cataloged when we did the survey, and they made me redo all of it.
So does
We
that
are
mean,
only allowed to put what's on the parcel ID as
Does-
the address.
does that mean that 1014 won't be included?
No, it's included because if you pull up the address of 1014 on the property appraiser, that parcel is there. And if you're concerned, what I want to turn your attention to is the map. The map is extremely
Okay.
important. So you need to look at that list in tandem with the map, and you will see that it is highlighted on the map as contributing to the proposed district.
I'm just protecting my building.
I understand.
Thank you for
Okay.
having patience with me.
Did I address it?
Yes, you did.
Okay, wonderful. But yeah, and that's for anybody who may watch this on the YouTube and, or have concerns or questions. That map, when we actually describe what the district boundary, we say refer to the map. So this map is really important. So if you're gonna pour over anything, take a look at this map, and if you see anything that needs to be corrected, alert me to it. But this is what we're showing as contributing and non-contributing.
Yeah.
You know
So,
what Bell's Elbow?
I have a digital copy of it, so you can zoom in on it on the computer.
yeah, I can't tell when it crosses Florida Avenue where it goes.
Well, they got Bell's Outlet over here for some reason, which is a little confusing.
Is it does it go across to 192?
I was
You
wondering
don't,
when
you
I
don't
looked
like
at this
that
why
nice
we're on
pink,
that side of
that
the
pink
road.
blob on the map?
What is that pink blob?
It's just that this is a
not Bell's, yeah.
GIS map. It's outside the district. They have that for reference. This is just, these are the highlights and everything that come up in the GIS map.
Yeah, but all of this is in the district.
Oh, the gray.
This,
Anything that is shaded,
yes.
right. Here's your boundary.
And where do I find the digital ones so I can read?
That is your boundary. I will be happy to email you.
That would be good.
But this is your boundary right here, okay?
I have great grandmother eyes. Thank you.
Oh,
Was there ever a Bell's outlet there?
No.
Okay.
I
So
was still trying to figure out what was there. I'm like, what
Yeah,
is
at this scale, the district boundary probably needs to be twice as thick as what it is to really read better.
Thank you for your patience with the old
I mean,
lady.
that's just the problem with that line type. It just doesn't pop out enough at this scale. Now, at a full size, it probably looks
Now
great.
that I've protected my building.
that's the map that we were given from the state, so I'll reach out to him and ask him to make those corrections.
Well, I mean,
half
if,
of
it
it
depends, it
listed.
depends on how it's gonna be distributed. If it's distributed electronically, then it's probably not as big of an issue as it is if it's actually produced in a format that's 8.5 by 11, then it's probably a bigger issue.
Okay. Are you all okay with me moving on?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Great, okay. So nomination research methods, the things that we access to research, the content for the nomination is Florida Photographic Collection, local newspapers. Thank you so much again, Member Horning, for giving me all those newspapers on USB. They were super helpful. The State Archives of Florida, plat maps. We have the Sanborn maps from 1915, 1924, 1931. We also researched the Polk's directories, the Chamber of Commerce maps. We had interviews with local informants, and we looked at previous National Register nominations. So the three that I already mentioned, we looked at that for some research as well. Okay, so this map is, I'm gonna just ignore this map because this is the current map that I got this morning. I did the presentation before this map was given to me. So, okay, resource counts. I was asked this question by Member Okendo before, and I couldn't recall it exactly, but I think if we play the tape, I got it right. So 275 properties were evaluated for eligibility. We determined that 209 of them were contributing. 34 were identified as non-contributing, and 32 are located outside the proposed boundaries. And the resources include residences, commercial and industrial, religious, and social recreational properties. The period of historical and architectural significance extends from 1909, when the community was founded, through 1970, which is reaching our 50-year benchmark. For the National Register of Historic Places, a property must have integrity. So integrity is very important, and they look at different factors of integrity. So the 7 aspects of integrity that they look at are location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. And they're looking for relatively minor alterations of material and design. That's what's going to result in contributing. And significant alterations and incompatible additions are what give it that non-contributing designation. One thing that I do want to point out to you all, if you look at this map, you'll notice that it's very different from our local historic district map. Our local historic district map is almost like a perfect rectangle. When we do the survey, the next step is we evaluate this with the state of Florida. Anything that is a non-contributing property on the periphery, they try to pull out of the district because they want a high concentration of contributing to non-contributing properties. If there's some outliers where, I could think of one right here where it's contributing to the local district, but it's right across the street, and they would have had to draw the boundary, include just one property, they prefer not to do that. That is not to say they won't. So again, I'm encouraging you all to look at this map. If there are any buildings that are in your local district but are not in this proposed National Register district and you think they should be, as long as they are contiguous to these lines you see here, we can make a request that they be included as well. Did that just make sense?
So I just want to make it clear. So this boundary is not, it's just for the National Historic Registry. Okay. Because I was worried about that little part of property there that was on 10th and Massachusetts, but we're still covering that. Okay.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So we have a lot of different types of houses and styles. So we have folk forms in St. Cloud, which are frame vernacular, hall and parlor, pyramidal, shotgun, folk Victorian, and masonry vernacular. We have the type of houses that we fall in the category of eclectic houses, which are Mediterranean revival, a special flair of Mediterranean revival in St. Cloud that was dubbed Spaniflora, and colonial revival. And then we have what's classified as the modern houses, which are craftsman, minimal traditional, ranch, and mid-century modern. So you've got a really good kind of breadth of resources in St. Cloud within the downtown. I wanted to give you some examples of when we're looking at contributing and non-contributing. We're looking at buildings that have integrity. So these are just some historic photos that show you can see the photo on the left is very similar to the photo on the right. You can't really see much difference at all there. So we see that building retains its integrity.
With the exception of the chimney.
This one here, it still does have its integrity. The upstairs has been changed a little bit, but overall, the form of the building, the materials, et cetera, are the same. This one here is a perfect example. There's been, very few changes on this Craftsman building. This one's at 1017 Florida Avenue. This is an example of what we would classify as non-contributing. So that's how we have it on the map and on the list. So this one, you can see that there was porch alteration that enclosed the porch, cladded in stucco. When flushed to the ground, they added the coins at the corner, octagonal windows. None of that is relating to the historic nature of the building. That's why it's classified as non-contributing. This one here, this was a home converted to a commercial business. Reconfiguration of the entrance occurred, alteration of exterior materials and windows, and the addition of a ramp to a nearby parking lot. You really can't recognize it as a historic building any longer. Just some of the historic context that's covered in the nomination. St. Cloud was founded on April 16, 1909. Hamilton Diston was a very important part of founding of St. Cloud with Diston Plantation. It became the largest sugar mill in the country. And the GIR established the community of St. Cloud to be a veterans colony. We also have a pretty significant period of St. Cloud's growth from 1940 to 1970. It appeared to be a dramatic increase after 1950 with 45% increase in population. So we have a lot of newer homes outside of the district, but this is looking at the context of the city overall. By mid-century, St. Cloud was touted as a community with a population of a large number of Spanish-American, World War I and World War II veterans, as well as a retired civil service, railroad, and industrial employee community. So that kind of gives you the flavor of the development of St. Cloud and the kind of people that were here that contributed to St. Cloud. Then, of course, St. Cloud, like anyone else in the region, was greatly impacted by the opening of Walt Disney World. And the other thing that's really impacted what St. Cloud looks like quite a bit was the expansion of US 192 in the beginning of the 1970s. That really changed that feel to become, in that area of St. Cloud, very much more auto-oriented, intensive, as everybody likes to complain about the traffic in St. Cloud. Don't get on any of those Facebook groups.
It's not just St. Cloud.
So, National Register Review Board, we fully expect that this is going to make its way to the National Register Review Board. The date is actually scheduled for February 2nd. We're super excited about that. What the National Register Review Board will do is they'll verify that the nomination meets the criteria and that everything has been adequately documented. They vote to then forward the nomination to the National Park Service. And the National Park Service is going to do one of a few things. They can accept the nomination, they could reject it, or they could request more information on the nomination. So once the National Park Service gets it, we are looking at hopefully around 45 days, maybe a little bit longer if they have questions, but we're really hoping that we get the designation by May of 2023, so we'll have a lot to celebrate for National Preservation Month. So those are the next steps. And I think, yep, one showed up. So do you all have any questions? Stephanie, can you email each one of them the list and the map so they can? Now we have time. What I'm looking for tonight from the board is a vote on the nomination, and then any if you all want to look at this information, Stephanie will share the files with you. Any corrections that you want to suggest once you've had time to look at this a bit. We do have a little bit of time that we can get comments back. I would recommend, if you all have the time, to try to look at this and get comments to me before November 17th, preferably by November 15th or so. And the reason why is because we're taking this to City Council for vote. So if the board does have any concerns or questions, I'd like to have them addressed before I actually go before City Council. Any questions?
So if we make a motion to approve tonight, how would you like to handle that if individually anyone has any comments before the 15th, before you go to council?
Special meeting.
I'm just asking.
Well, if they're not substantial, which I don't anticipate, that could be something that we could try to cure with the council and bring that as information. And so if a vote needs to be clarified or something like that, we can ask that it be done there. One
Well,
thing I would suggest, though, since we do have, the only thing that makes me a little bit is, whenever you do National Register nominations, there's either people who don't want to be part of the district or they wish they were. So when you have an existing district and then you have a National Register district that's shrunk down, like I explained to you why they do it, sometimes property owners who are outside but wish they had been inside, they might be aggrieved by it. So if you were going to consider any kind of motion that would try to anticipate that, I would say to just state that any properties that are outside the district but contiguous to the proposed boundaries, if a property owner comes forward with concerns about that, that we should evaluate that before city council meeting.
Well, and one of the reasons I really want to make sure that we're as clear as possible is you will have 2 new council members on at your meeting for approval who are not going to be in tune to what's happening.
We chose the November 17th meeting so that if we had to come back before the deadline for February, we would have an opportunity to return to them for more information. So hopefully we've built enough buffer room in there should that happen, but we did anticipate that.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the National Registry District as presented with the caveat that if we have any property owners that come forward to you all in reference to exclusion or inclusion, that you address that and move that appropriately through City Council.
Second.
All right.
Does that cover everything?
Discussion? Open into discussion. I mean, I'm comfortable with the idea that the reason the map boundaries pull in is because what's there is non-contributing. I really don't know that anybody's going to complain, hey, wait, my non-contributing is contributing, and, I mean,
Since we're in discussion, let me elaborate on that statement. Some properties that are contributing are directly outside that boundary. And the reason why the state chose that is they don't like to draw like half-block boundaries, or they don't like to have one house standing on a block alone. So it's not set in stone, but I will tell you that there are properties that are contributing, that were classified as contributing, but because they're on the next street, in some cases cat-a-corner, they were drawn outside the boundary. Does that make more sense? I'm going to walk over and show you one example.
10th in Florida.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't believe that that particular property ownership group is going to,
Care.
make a big deal.
That's just one example, but there are more than one where there is a contributing right outside, but contiguous. Not many.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, signify likewise. Believe your motion's passed. Have you
Right?
got direction?
You're on your way.
And if anybody finds little minor errors, please forward to Christina.
Thank you.
And
Or if you really want to have a special meeting, get it to Stephanie and say, hey, let's schedule a special workshop meeting and
Yeah.
have Christina bring the holiday treats.
Christina, when do you anticipate taking this to the city council?
November 17th.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. That
And then it would go to the state review board if all
Right,
goes well,
if they
February
approve-
2nd.
If they approve it. I just may have to show up.
That concludes the new business. Is there any other new business that wasn't on the agenda that needs to be added? There was the chance. All right, we'll open the floor for public comment. We hear crickets. We'll close public comment and go to individual board comments. We'll start on my right, and that way that Tony will have the last word. Any public, all right? Paula?
I'm good.
No, I'm fine.
Nope.
Tony, any?
Thank you for indulging me this evening, my fellow board members. I appreciate you all.
All right, informational wise, we're not meeting again until January 10th.
I will miss you all.
You're-
You
Gotta
really
be
look
careful.
sincere in that, I gotta tell you.
She'll miss that.
Maybe Chair Clara will miss like this.
Yes,
I've got other ways, to
Happy
create havoc in your life. It's not that fun.
happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and Happy New
All
Year.
right. According to T-Mobile, it's 6:33 as we conclude.